only thing we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and the culture. This is Wallbuilders Live. We appreciate you listening today. Be sure and visit our website at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. I'm Rick Green here with David Barton, and we've got a very interesting program today. David, I think this is the first time we've had a guest on that was having to call us from inside prison. It's depending on who you listen to, either a very abusive case from the government or a tax protester. And we just got to be honest. I mean, this is a new one to us. We don't know this case well. We've just been asked to interview this gentleman and look into it.
And that's not a problem for us to do that. I mean, one of the things we know very clearly, and I think I've mentioned that the first person who introduced me to this was Justice Stephen Breyer, who by no means is a social conservative nor a religious conservative. And he talked about, look, all the provisions in the Bill of Rights came out of the Bible. We all know that. And I go, really? I didn't know that. And so I looked up in the U.S. Federal Code and in the Federal Practice and Procedure, Volume 30, there's a long section, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 pages, whatever it is, on how the Bible shaped that. And so as I got into that and started seeing, there is a reason that Proverbs 18:17 says one side sounds good until the other side comes and cross-examines. There's a reason that Jesus in John 8:12 says, where's your accuser? You get to confront your accuser. And so from that standpoint, it's a good thing for us to hear some sides, because this on its surface, I don't care which side you come down on this on its surface has some things that should be concerning and troubling to anyone who loves the Constitution, loves freedom. And regardless of what you think about anybody's personality or what they did or didn't do, there's some process things that certainly raise some red flags here. So it will be interesting to hear. I don't know that you and I, either one, have ever met Kent. Certainly he was known in Christian circles for a number of years in creation science type stuff, but now has spent 8.5 years in prison, allegedly on some tax issues. And of course, that was the first red flag for me. The tax issues of which they convicted him, the average time spent in prison is 18 months, if you go to prison. That's for the ones who go to prison. Most of them never go to prison.
That's right.
And so for Kent to have 8.5 years in prison, not 18 months, something doesn't seem right off the bat. So it will be interesting to get some facts from Kent and actually ask him about some of these things that we just don't know the answers to.
Yeah, just even looking at it at a cursory level, what really caught our attention is, here you got a ministry guy that has spent that long in prison over a tax issue. That in and of itself is questionable and definitely worth looking into. So we figured, why not talk to the source himself? Kent Hovind will be with us when we come back. Some of our listeners that have been around the creation education movement for a while might remember him as Dr. Dino, and taught a lot of people on the creation issue. And it's just a mind-boggling case. And we're going to ask him about it. Got a limited time with him, so we're going to try to squeeze in a lot. Our call with him is limited, so we're going to try to squeeze in a lot. This will move pretty quick. We'll be back in a moment on Wallbuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Crime is one of America's most serious problems today. Its effects reach not only the direct victims of its violence, but even those who have not been attacked. The concern for crime has not been limited to this century, however. Our founding fathers were also concerned about it. Yet the effects of crime unquestionably were much less in their generation. So what was their deterrent to crime? Signer of the Constitution, James McHenry, answered that question. He explained, "The Holy Scriptures can alone secure to society order and peace. In vain, without the Bible, we increase penal laws and draw protections around our institutions. Bibles are strong defenses. Where they abound, men cannot pursue wicked courses." Founding Father James McHenry believed that widely teaching the Bible was the best means to deter crime.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact Wallbuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and politics. Thanks for staying with us here on Wallbuilders Live. We have on the phone with us Kent Hovind. Kent, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, sir. Good to be with you.
Well, we talked a little bit about your case. It's the first time we've had this on our program, so we want to use our time wisely with you. Our understanding is that when the federal government came after you for what they called tax evasion and tax fraud, you believed that you were not, as a church and a ministry, not required to pay taxes.
Well, it's a little simpler than that. In order to be a withholding agent for the federal government, the church has to, the church is not required to do that at all. The people have to ask you to do that, the people that work there with the W-2 form. Nobody did that. We're simply a ministry. Many ministries, probably most ministries do, but no church is required to do that. I had written extensively to the IRS saying, what do you want from me? Am I breaking any laws? How do I do this? And they never responded, except to just come and arrest me. They arrested me for one charge was not withholding taxes from employees, and I said, look, we don't have any employees, and we're not authorized to do that. I can't. You have to actually take a class to be authorized to withhold from people, and nobody in our ministry asked that, and everybody paid their own taxes. There was no tax evasion. There was no tax loss. It was crazy. The biggest charge, though, was structuring, which I'd never heard of before. They said, you took your own money out of the bank to pay your bills. Yeah, okay, I got 10 years in prison for structuring. All the details are up on 2peter3.com. That's one of the dumbest laws ever passed. But to enforce it on me the way they did is even dumber. It's just like, what happened here? It's a pretty crazy situation. So Rudy keeps up with it on his YouTube, Lone Star 1776 YouTube channel has a bunch of stuff about this case. There's nearly 60-some million people have logged in and followed this thing, and they're pretty upset about what happened to me. They should be. I've spent 102 months in prison for absolutely nothing, not a single crime. Anyway, thank you for...
No, absolutely. I mean, so you've already been in prison for how long?
102 months, 8.5 years.
Wow. So and all for, I mean, even if, here's what strikes me when I hear your story. I mean, even if you knowingly committed any of these things that they claim you did, which I clearly hear you saying you did not, and you had no idea they expected you to do some of these things, but even if you did, there are an awful lot of people out there that have not had to spend even one day in jail knowingly committing those kind of crimes or committing worse crimes.
Well, correct. There's been quite a bit in Congress in the last 6 months over this stupid structuring law. Years ago, Congress passed a law that said if someone takes out more than $10,000, the bank has to fill out a form, a cash transaction report, a CTR. They were trying to catch drug dealers. So the drug dealer said, okay, well, we'll take out $9,000 in the morning and $9,000 in the afternoon, and that way they don't fill out their form and they can't catch us. So Congress, in their great wisdom, changed the law and said if you structure your transactions to avoid this reporting requirement, that is a crime. Well, my wife and I, actually just my wife, under my direction, went down to the bank every 12 days, about almost every 2 weeks, and made one single withdrawal.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
Made one single withdrawal of cash to keep cash on hand for various bills and needs of the ministry. We were growing and expanding. There was never any avoiding or evading. It was one single withdrawal, 12 days apart. And over the years, it totaled $400-some thousand. And so they accused me of 45 counts of structuring the transaction, when none of them were structured. None. Zero. After trial, the jury was so confused, the judge changed the jury instructions, and she said, if you find the Hovinds took out less than $10,000, you have to find them guilty, which, of course, is exactly what happened. We took out less than $10,000. Well, that means if you go take out $100 out of your bank every day for X number of days, eventually you're going to be guilty of structuring if it crosses over the 10,000 mark. To make it worse, they said all that money that was withdrawn 5 years ago, you now owe to the government $400,000. You owe that. The money's been long spent. It was put into the buildings and properties and ministry needs. It's gone.
Wait, they say that the money you withdrew out of your own account simply because a form wasn't sent in to the IRS, that you have to turn that money over to them?
Exactly correct. That is exactly what happened in my case. They said that money should be forfeited. Well, the money was long spent. It's been 5 years ago when this happened. So they said, well, then we want to seize the church property. And so the trustees said, wait a minute, excuse me, that you can't seize the ministry property. That's not Kent's. And the judge let that motion sit on her desk for 7 months, where we said, look, the church trustees said, we want a trial, we want a hearing. The jury never found this. How can you substitute the church property for Kent's debt? First place, the debt is stupid. I don't owe them $400,000. Money was withdrawn perfectly lawfully. There's no drugs involved in this case. It's church ministry money. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's shocking to me that because you don't fill out paperwork that the government has decided you need to fill out to take your own money out of your own bank account, that now that money is theirs. That is just amazing. Got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Our guest calling in from what should have been the tail end of his nearly 10-year sentence. Kent Hovind will be back in a moment to find out more. Stay with us here on Wallbuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Although education has remained an emphasis in America for nearly 200 years, what has changed the most over that period of time is the philosophy of education. For example, while religion finds no place of refuge in our schools today, such was not the case at the time of our founding fathers. In fact, when the Delaware Indian chiefs brought their youths to be trained in America's schools, on June the 12th, 1779, George Washington told them, "You do well to wish to learn our arts and our way of life, and above all, the religion of Jesus Christ. These will make you a greater and happier people than you are. Congress will do everything they can to assist you in this wise intention." According to George Washington, what students learned above all in American education at the time of the Founding Fathers was the religion of Jesus Christ.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact Wallbuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Wallbuilders Live. We're talking to Kent Hovind today. He is on the tail end of a 10-year sentence for what the U.S. government said was tax fraud and evasion. He claims that he paid all the taxes that he owed, and never purposefully avoided any of those taxes, but has spent the last 8 years in prison, and now they're going after him again. And Ken, I'm still confused by and amazed by this idea, this structuring thing that you can be required to turn over your own money if you don't fill out a piece of paper for the federal government because you were withdrawing more than $10,000. That sounds crazy.
Well, last year in 2014, there were 150 seizures similar to mine, where the IRS seized private people's money over this stupid structuring law, and they had nothing to do with drugs whatsoever. One guy had $900,000 seized. He finally had to pay the IRS $50,000 to give it back. This is his own money from his own business. It's just like there's a lot in the news and in Congress.
Yeah, let me jump to your current, because I know we have limited time. Let me jump to your, so now when you were very close to getting out, they came back on you with new charges. What is this new trial that you just had and new charges they came against you with?
Correct. I should have been home in February. I have an 8.5-year-old grandson that I have never held in freedom. Never. I've been in prison that long. I have 5 grandkids. They all live right next door to me. Well, after they said, yes, we're going to seize the church property, the trustees filed motion saying, no, you can't do that. That's church property, blah, blah, blah. The judge said, no, yeah, they can. Go ahead and seize it. So they went down and changed the names on 9 of the properties that we own right there in Pensacola, where our ministry was, Creation Science Evangelism. Changed the names to say U.S. government. I'm being transferred all over the country in the prison system. I've been moved 23 times in chains. I moved all over the place. I get up in Berlin, New Hampshire.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
My cellmate, who's a legal genius, looks over my case and says, Kent, this is crazy what they did. I said, I know. What do I do? He said, have you filed a Bivens claim? I said, I don't know what that is. So he helped me file a Bivens suit. He said, now that there's an active lawsuit, and there was, perfectly legitimate, he said, you can file a lis pendens. I said, what is that? He said, it just means litigation is pending, because they were trying to sell the properties. They were selling off of the church properties that they had seized. And so I filed a lis pendens. Said, hey, hold on, there's litigation pending. You might want to wait before you buy this. The title may be clouded. So now they're accusing me of using the mail to defraud the government. There's a 20-year sentence for mail fraud. And then Paul Hansen, the church trustee, was also fighting this case. So they said we conspired together. There's another 20-year sentence for conspiracy to commit mail fraud. So what they have on the table right now at this trial coming up in 3 weeks from today is possible 40 years in prison for mail fraud and conspiracy to commit mail fraud for mailing a letter that says, hey, litigation may be pending, litigation is pending on this property. You might want to hold off. It is just, it's if it wasn't happening to me, it would be funny. But it's happening to me, brother.
Wow. So
yeah, that's what it's all about.
Let me go all the way back to the beginning of all of this. A lot of people have not come to your aid, from what I can tell, just in the limited amount of research I've been able to do, because they felt like you were just a tax protester and refusing to pay taxes, and not they felt like you were wrong, even in Christians in the Christian community, and haven't backed you. Has this been? I mean, were you taking the position of no one should ever have to pay taxes, or I mean, what was your position with regard to taxes being owed or not owed?
Well, in the first place, you have to have taxes to run any government. I'm not a tax protester. Their own records, individual master files, said clearly Kent Hovind is not a tax protester and does not owe any tax. I spent $146 to get a copy of that file, that individual master file that they keep on everybody. And they sent me mine, 710 pages. Then, at trial, when the government introduced that same stack of paper as evidence that I cost them a lot of time and energy and money to fill out all those papers, they withheld those 35 pages of my innocence, saying he's not a tax protester. They left him out. My attorney tried to bring that up, and the judge stopped him and said, whoa, the IRS is not on trial here. Kent Hovind's on trial. You stop this line of questioning right now. Short answer to the question, no, I'm not a tax protester. However, our country was started by those guys. They threw the tea in the harbor and started a big war. So, yeah, we need tax protesters, no question. I am not one. I don't have time. It's not my calling. I don't have the gift for it, okay? But I pay every tax I owe. I always have. If I owe a tax, I pay it. So I think when people who say that about me are doing the same thing Job's friends did to him, Bildad, Eliphaz, Zophar, they said, Job, you had to do something wrong, or, this wouldn't have happened. Their whole song and dance for the whole book of Job was, Job, you had to sin. Finally, God had to explain it to him in chapter 42. Guys, go tell Job you're sorry. And so maybe that'll happen in my case.
Yeah,
I'm not a tax protester. I
got you. So
I
even
didn't do anything wrong.
Right. So even those that did not want to defend your innocence in the beginning, even a lot of those now are saying, "Look, enough is enough. 8 years in prison. Let the guy out." Do you feel like, I mean, even though you maintain your innocence, you didn't do anything wrong in the beginning, will that help with the judge that, hey, it's been 8 years. Enough is enough?
I don't know what will help with this judge. This is the same judge that put me away for 10 years. The maximum sentence would have been 6 months had I been guilty of the structuring. 0 to 6 months, which is probation. Nothing. I didn't have any record at all. It's my first time ever in jail. And so no record, clean as a houndstooth. Well, so she enhanced it to 10 years. And so now I'm before the same judge saying, hey, is this guy guilty of mail fraud for mailing a letter? Well, that could carry, it's totally up to the judge's discretion, up to 20 years.
This is a judge that I've seen some people say that she's anti-Christian, that because your ministry was a creation, you were educating people on creation, that she had hostility towards you. Is that true?
I can't prove that. I don't know. There certainly is a lot of interesting articles out there about what she did with the principal at Pace High School. threatened to put him in prison for 5 years for praying at a football banquet or leading in prayer or something. I don't know all those details. She's a very intelligent woman and knows the law extremely well. I don't know if there's hostility. I don't know if somebody told her she has to do this. I do know at my sentencing she said, "Mr. Hovind, this crime is worse than rape." And everybody heard that and was shocked. And then when we paid for the transcript, $4,600, we said, "We want a copy of this whole transcript so we can appeal this." Usually it takes about 2 months to get a copy of a transcript from a trial. Well, it took 16 months to get my transcript. So I'm sitting in jail for 16 months waiting for the transcript. When it finally arrived, the comment about rape, and we don't know what else, but the comment about rape was gone. So 8 people filled out affidavits and said, "Hey, she said that. Why isn't that in the transcript?" Can't change a transcript.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I filed a complaint against her for some of the things she did, and that complaint went to the 11th Circuit in Atlanta and was ultimately dismissed without addressing any of my claims. But that complaint is also up on 2peter3.com.
And that's what I was going to ask you last. We've only got a few seconds left here. So folks that want to learn more, that want to come to your aid and help, pray for you and help you in any other way that they can, is that website the best place to go, 2peter3.com?
Yeah, that or freekenthovind.com. Both of them have loads of stuff on me there. Okay?
Kent, thank you for your time today. Very interested in following this and finding out more, and I look forward to doing some more research. We appreciate you calling in today.
Thank you, brother. Stay
with us, folks. We'll be back in a moment on Wallbuilders Live. Have you noticed the vacuum of leadership in America? We're looking around for leaders of principle to step up, and too often, no one is there. God is raising up a generation of young leaders with a passion for impacting the world around them. They're crying out for the mentorship and leadership training they need. Patriot Academy was created to meet that need. Patriot Academy graduates now serve in state capitals around America, in the halls of Congress, in business, in the film industry, in the pulpit, and every area of the culture. They're leading effectively and impacting the world around them. Patriot Academy is now expanding across the nation, and now's your chance to experience this life-changing week that trains champions to change the world. Visit patriotacademy.com for dates and locations. Our core program is still for young leaders 16 to 25 years old, but we also now have a citizen track for adults. So visit the website today to learn more. Help us fill the void of leadership in America. Join us in training champions to change the world at patriotacademy.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Wallbuilders Live. Back here now with David Barton. And David, I don't know if you could hear during the interview, we got interrupted several times, but nothing we could do about it. That's part of the call from the prison thing. So anyway, but we did get quite a bit of his story in a pretty short period of time there. What'd you think?
You know, one of the things that struck me immediately was we've talked about a couple times over the last couple of years, and that's what's called overcriminalization. We've had a case at the U.S. Supreme Court each of the last 2 years on this, and this is where a zealous prosecutor or a zealous judge decides to take a law that was not intended to apply to something like that, and in this case it could be the restructuring law, which I remember was designed to stop drug dealers who were taking out massive amounts of cash. It wasn't designed to stop Creation Science Ministries, but a zealous prosecutor or judge will take and apply it how they want to. They read the wording of the law and ignore the intent. And the Scripture says, and John Dickinson, signer of the Constitution, reminded us of Scripture in Corinthians, it says, the letter killed, but the Spirit gives life. When you follow the spirit of the law, you get the intent. When you follow the letter of the law, it'll kill you. It'll crush the life. And so the case we talked about this year that went to the U.S. Supreme Court was John Yates down in Florida. And John Yates was a fisherman. He came in from fishing. A federal inspector stopped him, said, want to see your fish. Looked, and he had, 3,000, 4,000 fish, whatever it was. And they said, well, we found here 72 grouper that you caught that are undersized. So come over to the dock tomorrow. We'll do a better count and see what we got. When he came to the dock the next day, they counted the fish again and said that there's only 69 grouper here. There were 72 yesterday. You've destroyed some of the grouper. So rather than fining him $500, which is what the law says at that point, they said, we're going to charge you under Sarbanes-Oxley, which was the law passed after Enron, when Enron tried to destroy and shred documents to keep itself from getting convicted. So what they did is said, now you're looking at 20 years jail time. Wait a minute, the fishing offense is $500. No, it's now 20 years because we're charging you with shredding documents. That was not the intent of that law, was to go after undersized grouper fish. And the U.S. Supreme Court held that this time. They had one last time like that. So this is another kind where you can take the letter of the law. And this is why the book was written a few years ago called 3 Felonies a Day. We have passed so many laws in America that every one of us is guilty of breaking about 3 felonies a day. And if they wanted to come after you, they could. But I'll go back to what doesn't smell right about this. Most folks who have these tax problems do not go to jail, and the ones who do average 18 months. For Ken to be there for 8.5 years doesn't make sense. I've been told the prosecutors are trying to make it a life sentence. And if they get these another 20 years and 20 years for mail fraud, which, simply notifying through the mail, that's crazy. So some of this doesn't smell right. We don't know all the truth that's out there, but part of this just doesn't make any sense, and it smells like overcriminalization.
It's one of those to definitely look further into, folks that are listening. If you'd like to find out more, he gave us 2 websites for that, 2peter3.com and also freekenthovind.com. Thanks for listening today to Wallbuilders Live.
We stand undivided forever.